The others,
Harry, I've been in communication with Joe.
Yeah.
He's not making.
I didn't think so because of
Tried to shame him and that's why.
with his new.
I'm from New York.
It's a beautiful day.
That's a nice takeaway.
It's a beautiful morning out and this may, I haven't heard from Joe Fay either. Just,
No, Eleanor said yes. that-
I knew Eleanor could, but that's okay. This is just really a chance for us to check in and catch up. Oh, good. Okay, so we've got, nope. It's, oh, good. It's Sarah. I thought it was another face. Sorry.
Especially. Just traffic.
Okay.
So. That's the conversation, so there's like this.
I'm gonna go ahead. Is that okay?
I
Get
think so. I
started?
think, do you want us to get the door?
I'll just get it.
Thank you.
Call it to order and- Why don't we get started with a small but mighty group of folks, and I'm actually going to go to the first piece and let everybody again officially meet our new team members from the county. Tom or Megan, do you want to, David, Sarah, to introduce yourselves and your role?
And if I can, I'll just say, David is a new team member of mine. He joins us from the Department of Planning and Development, but worked for Enterprise Community Partners before that. And we're so excited to have him for so many reasons with his experience and background. And he will be supporting AHAC moving forward. And he will also be focusing on data. So y'all are familiar with the dashboard. And we are very happy to have capacity now to update it and to maintain it more routinely, which is wonderful. And David's already started collecting data for that, which is great. And then David will also be working with our inclusionary zoning team and working through the review of site plans and entitlements and planning studies as well. So you may see his face not only supporting AHAC, but also talking about some of that work as well. And so David, would you like to mention?
Yeah, no, thank you, Megan, for the.
I totally zoned that we had people. I know we have to do something official in a minute. I just want to make sure, Jill, can you guys hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I want to make sure
Yes.
we'll finish this and then we'll come back and do what I have to do.
Do you have the script?
I'll find it.
Okay, I was gonna say.
No worries. Well, thank you, Megan, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. It's good to see you guys in person as well as virtual. Excited to work with you guys moving forward, and also, get some of those data points updated, and then, beginning to go through some of those inclusionary zoning entitlements. But thank you guys for coming today.
David, are you also going to be in charge of the HCD artificial intelligence system?
We haven't talked about that today.
It's hush hush on that. And
I'm the only thing here with artificial intelligence.
And Sarah will be helping. She's joined our administrative staff. She's directly reporting to our deputy director, Anna Shapiro. And will also be helping with AHAC and brings a wealth of experience. She's joining us from LDS, worked with Matthew Hansen, if you've met him before. So she had a lot going on in her previous role as well. And we're really excited to see what she can bring to our team as well as this group. Would you like to say anything as well?
Thank you guys for welcoming me to the team. This is all very still new to me, so I think I've got maybe 2 weeks on David. So we're both still new to this division, and I'm excited to continue learning, and it's a pleasure to meet all of you.
Great. Well, welcome, and we're just go around the room very quickly, and then I'll do the official.
John Boylan with the business representative and help with the Dulles Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome. I'm Nick Bracco with Lincoln Avenue Communities. We're a real estate developer here.
I'm Jerry Poggi. I'm with the Human Services Council. I just want to also hopefully make sure each of you have affordable homes. You know, there are even-
I'll get that for everyone.
Good morning. Come on in. Perfect timing. Just- We are introducing ourselves.
Oh,
Go ahead.
we know each other?
Oh, yeah, good news. Yeah.
Two staff members have joined us. So we're- Eric.
My turn.
Yeah.
Your turn, sorry.
Kerry Kincannon. I'm the pastor emeritus, I guess, at Rising Hope Mission Church. And we've been involved in a lot with working with people in need of affordable housing.
Right. We just met, David is going to be working with AHAC on all of our, keeping the dashboard up to date, inclusionary zoning and support, and Sarah's going to be continuing to provide some administrative support. And of course, we all appreciate Megan, Tom. I have something going on where it says I can't open any of my files. They're all corrupt, so I don't have the script. It's because the artificial intelligence has infected my computer. And Jill and Ava will get to you. I'll just read this and then we'll let you introduce yourselves. Thank you so much.
This is the right one. And
Close enough. In light of the current situation, as well as ongoing usefulness of such a policy to be able to work, to have electronic participation, I move that the AHAC approve, okay, we've already done that. Do I need to approve the electronic communication? I'm going to present the note that the verification, we are going to be meeting electronically today. Virginia law authorizes that. And I'm going to read a verification that the remote participant's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for the meeting room, and confirmation of their location. And so, Jill, would you state your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, thank you. I'm Jill Norcross with the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance, and I'm calling from Reston, Virginia.
Great. Ava?
Hi, I'm Ava Nguyen, and I'm calling from McLean, and I'm with the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors.
Great. So I move that these individuals' voices may be adequately heard in this location.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good enough. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you all. So why don't we go just very quickly to any membership news and then announcements in terms of certainly had a big week this week. Tom, do we want to start with you and then we'll go around the room?
I think what we can do is, you know, if you want to do membership news, I do have a PowerPoint.
Great. Anybody news for the good of the hour? Anything going on?
9% tax credit applications are due next Thursday, in case you didn't know.
I'm doing two presentations, one to the NAACP tomorrow, and one to the American Association of University Women.
Yeah.
And Tom gratefully shared many more of the SDRHA annual report, which is chock full.
Make sure we speak up. I'll come back.
Chock full of good information, but also QR codes to access videos,
That's great.
which is terrific.
Hey, Jill, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to Tom and his team and Linda Hoffman on a great housing symposium and turnout at George Mason. I thought it was a great event. So good to network. So good to have you do a great job, Tom, of getting our local elected officials there. And I think, you know, just good to all be in the room saying the same thing. So appreciate all the hard work that went into that.
Indeed. Ava, anything?
And nothing for me. Thank you.
Great. Don't have anything? I'll let you. Oh, Mary Payton. Thank you for joining us. Mary, could you state your name for the record and where you're calling from?
And I'm calling in from Alexandria, Virginia.
Thanks, Mary. I move that Mary's voice is audible and may be heard.
Second.
Thank you. Please, thanks, Mary. Did you have any updates for us? We're just doing member updates right now.
NACP is having a event tomorrow where we're setting up, we're talking about our advocacy agenda for the year, including housing. And that's going to be at 3:30 at the Kings Park Library. Also that our bill, the mobile home bill to allow localities to have a right of first refusal on mobile home parks that are for sale, or a nonprofit if the locality assigns them, has passed through the Senate and is sent to the governor for signature. So we're very proud of that.
So, great work on that. Thank you, Mary. Great. And I'll Mary, or Jill. Yeah.
Keith Moon has joined a.
Back to you, Tom.
Did you want?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Taddeo, from the school district. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm so welcome. We're so glad to see you here. You are the new representative for Sully District. And I think you're acquainted with.
Kathy.
Yeah. Great. So welcome a new AHEC member joining us. This is a perfect meeting, so this will be a little bit of an orientation. And then when we go into the full councils, we'll be talking about some of the things. So it's thrilling.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
So I'm going to take us through something of an update here, and we're going to use a PowerPoint. And as that's being loaded, I did want to just reiterate how very grateful I am to our entire staff for the wonderful job that they did putting together Wednesday's housing symposium. I wanted to thank Carrie for doing such a wonderful job on the panel about homeless services. I think that was really a great addition to the conversation, and you know, I think really helped sort of broaden the appeal. So thank you very much for that, and I want to thank Jill for stepping in and being our advisor in the months leading up to the symposium, helping us, you know, figure out you know, good topics, and you know, just was absolutely, her advice and help was just absolutely invaluable. So thank you for that, Jill. Just going forward, I wanted to provide sort of a brief set of updates. This is adapted to some level from the presentation that I gave the board's housing committee the other day, but we've had some additional developments that I wanted to also highlight here. So, you know, they're going to, you know, generally follow, you know, these five sort of areas: our federal programs, homelessness governance, new development, preservation, and our policy efforts. Okay, go ahead if you would. So at the federal level, the HUD appropriations bill is moving forward. It passed the House. I believe it passed the Senate yesterday, so it's on its way to becoming law. Couple of really key things. One that has sort of flown under the radar is the extension of all of the moving to work contracts. So there are about 100 now moving to work agencies. The FCRHA was one of the original 39. All of those contracts were set to expire at the end of 2028. They have now all been extended to 2038.
Awesome.
As you know, we've used our MTW authority to, you know, really important effect on a number of fronts that have made really a big difference here in Fairfax County. With respect to the housing programs nationally, now all of this will depend on how it's administered through the various formulas. But the voucher program had a 7% increase. They also added about 3,000 specialized vouchers nationally. We'll see, sort of how that all shakes out. CDBG has level funding. Home took a reduction, but far less of a reduction than was originally proposed by the House. And we are working to understand, sort of the funding levels for the homeless programs. But, early indications are that those also received an increase of approximately 10%. So wanted to provide that. But the issue with moving to work is a great big deal here locally.
So Tom, what does the local impact have for CDBG at level funding that actually is, given the inflationary cycles that we're in, it actually implies a cut somewhere along the line?
So we need to, we certainly need to see how it's administered through the formula, through the CDBG formula, but in effect, level funding means dollar for dollar level. So, ultimately, there is an impact, because of inflationary pressures. Also, the Build American, Buy American Act is having something of an impact on our federal funds and their use in our housing development projects. But
Tom, the win was that it was supposed to be cut, right? So to get back to level funding, even in,
I mean,
regardless of the value of the dollar.
That's a victory right there.
It's the
Yes. Yeah, that's a very important point. Okay, carrying on. We've briefed you before. We briefed you as we prepared to implement our new real market rents. We have implemented them. They're underway. Very early days yet for us to be able to report out relative to more mobility. But I did want to just keep this on your radar that we have implemented them. Okay.
Has there been, through your team, sort of outreach to the folks who, like on my team, has there been briefings about the implications as they're preparing?
We are
research?
we are just getting started.
That's what I wondered. Great.
Go ahead to the next slide. Homelessness governance, as you know, the Continuum of Care Board has been reconstituted. They have begun meeting, and we are expecting that there will be, communication back here to AHAC as well as to the board on an ongoing basis.
Do you have a timing on that or an estimate?
Let me get back to you on that. Next, if we could.
So do we have a representative on the Continuum of Care, or how is
We
that?
do. It's Maura.
Okay.
Maura and Eleanor is also serving.
That's right.
And again, we did leave it that if they want to, I think that's open, if they want to appoint somebody, or if the chair, I'm hoping that David will join us at an upcoming meeting when there is some, I think when this plan, I think we would make that an invitation, standing invitation.
I was sorry that he wasn't able to make it.
I know, it's too bad.
Because I think he's a little more visionary than Tom probably couldn't share, but it would be easier for David to. But I'm kind of excited to see where he takes that as the leader.
Yeah, I think it is. It's so helpful in that sort of leadership role to have someone who has been an elected official. I think that the perspective that brings to that particular work is really, really important. So we're so grateful to David. Before I move on to the development update, I did want to share a little bit of breaking news, if I could, with respect to our efforts to serve the most vulnerable in the community. The FCRHA next Thursday will be asked to approve a memorandum of agreement with State Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, which is going to provide for 300 new state-funded permanent supportive housing vouchers over the next 3 years. And it includes services as well as staff for HCD to actually administer the program. So state's doing it right. And it's going to be valued at $21 million over the first 3 years. So, it's going to be targeted at the needs of seriously mentally ill people. And we are very, very excited about that. And the reason that we're able to do that, the reason that we're able to, to start something like that on such a large scale is both because of the partnerships we have in the community and because the operations side of the Department of Housing is, really very high functioning and knows what it's doing relative to administering rental subsidy programs. So that's some really important news. The RHA's agenda will be published today, and they'll be voting on it next Thursday.
Tell me the source of funds be released, state tax dollars.
State tax dollars.
Great.
It's so important. I mean, the governor's proposal for his budget from December said he was going to remove 10 million out of permanent supportive housing. So I'm very happy to hear this news. Who would be your partner in the local government on the services side? Is that CSB?
So it would be CSB, but the services are going to be administered through Pathways.
Okay.
They had that grant. Wasn't some of this money from DBHDS? They still had reserved some federal dollars from ARPA and other funds that they were able to deploy to some of the initiatives that are really helping us serve the most vulnerable. And that's a first time because we haven't seen those increases at the state level for this population. And I think we'll need to stay on top of sort of the long-term funding of this. And
But it is a huge deal.
huge.
Yeah, like game
100%.
changing.
Yeah.
And this is even, this is on top of the state rental assistance program with which many of you are familiar that grew out of, sort of the end of the training centers. So, the state, I think, had wanted, very much to grow their partnership on permanent supportive housing with the locals. And I think that's probably the first time in 5 years.
It's the governor's congratulations.
Or he's telling us we changed our mind.
Tom, congratulations to you and your team.
All of us together,
Yeah.
it's the whole,
Great.
it's all of us together getting.
Is that a first in the Commonwealth type partnership
The,
we know of?
I don't know the
It is.
answer to that.
I'd have to, I can't imagine there's
is.
anybody else doing it, so
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean,
It's certainly not seen if you're.
I would imagine that it is.
It is,
you
and
know.
it's very exciting. And I think for DBHDS to see the quality of the services that Pathways and sort of this population is a real, so the combination of having this team, I'm very excited. They were going to co-locate with us, but they have a team out of Reston. So we have some big issues on our end of the county, but they'll be obviously working countywide, but it's been great to have that partnership. Right.
So 300 units, is that a max rent?
It's 300
Vouchers
vouchers.
that will be to lease and
Different
then
places.
provide the services that come along with it.
Okay.
So it's funded for both, which is huge.
Which is the funding for the services is always the part that
Yeah.
never tracks, right? It's easy to take a voucher and put a person, but then providing those ongoing services, what is the real?
Alyssa was terrific on
Yeah,
the
she was
panel yesterday.
Wednesday.
I thought her depth of complexity about what it takes to meet the service needs, I thought was really very compelling and educational for people who may not have thought about that domain of problem. And I can't wait to read her book when it finally comes out.
So just carrying on, if I could, since 2020, we've delivered close to 900 new affordable housing units serving a range of incomes and locations all over Fairfax County. And we have tons more on the way. Go ahead to the next slide. We've got almost 1,000 units under construction right now. One university that I don't know if any of you got to tour it during the symposium, but one university will deliver this summer. Ilda's Overlook is actually going to deliver next month. Or I think we're doing ribbon cutting later this month, actually, now that I'm thinking of it. Autumn Willows under construction out in the Springfield district, and APA's mega project at the Spring Hill Metro in Tyson's is also under construction as well. Moving on to our pipeline, we've got, some of these in various stages. But Telestar, which is a building repurposing in Merrifield, is going to close this fall. Somos, which is another very large project in the Tyson's Urban Center, will be closing in pieces in 2 phases, one in March, the other this summer. And that's moving forward. Residences at the Government Center, there's some rascal in charge of that one that we may know. Mr.
Artificial
Crawford.
intelligence.
Artificial.
And they're putting in their tax credit application here next week, as is Kindred Crossing, which is Wesley's project at First Christian Church. That is our first project of this type on a faith community's lands. That's moving forward. The Lamb Center, Wesley's project with the Lamb Center in the city of Fairfax for permanent supportive housing. We're finishing up the financing on that, hoping to move forward. And the rest you see here. We've got a lot going on.
I just add, because I didn't announce, the West Docks Route 50 permanent supportive housing project is one that we are doing. With 34 units of permanent supportive housing. There is a Sully District Council planning a meeting coming up, a public hearing, and it's on March 18th. I'm going to be sending out some information to invite people to either, one, send letters to Supervisor Smith, but also, and to Supervisor Harity. They're right across the street, separated by Route 50, but some questions there. But I'm going to just take the privilege of saying I'd love to send some things out and see if we can get some support, because there's obvious concern. We're delayed in some of the planning, but the public meetings are going forward, and we want to build the energy so when we're ready that we can move forward.
If we had a Sully representative, boy, that would really help.
That would be great. Harmony Taddeo spoke at the last meeting.
Oh, good.
And some members, we did have some members, Tara will be there, Tara Wiskowski from the Lamb Center, because again, we're similar down the street, and we're actually talking about, sharing pathways, is working with us on thinking about the services. So we'll be out there, but I'll get a note out to everybody this week.
I attended the Reston SSPA meeting Tuesday. And there is a pretty heavy NIMBY component to, even in so-called progressive Reston, to even considering new projects that, are being brought forward by people whose properties need to be redesigned and restructured. So it was fascinating to see that, but there also was a presence of people one person even wearing a YIMBY
Yeah.
shirt.
They were out to testify as well.
But I think you're right, turning out people with knowledge about why this is so needed.
We had been discouraged from the early meetings because it was the neighbors meeting from turning on the faucets, but now I think we're down the road enough. They've heard the details, having some folks talk about the importance of permanent supportive housing. I'm sorry, I did not mean to derail your slides, but took the opportunity.
Absolutely not. But I would ask if you can circulate the date for the upcoming.
Yeah.
meetings. I think that's really important. Okay, go on to the next slide here. This is sort of looking ahead to some of our other projects we have coming down the road. The East County site, which is at Columbia Pike and Route 7. was transferred by the board to the Housing Authority, and we've got that one in planning. Also, the Dulles Green site at the Innovation Metro. It's on the north side of the toll road. And we've got that one in planning. Got a little home ownership project that we're going to be getting underway. We actually, I'll just note as an aside that we're hiring a new home ownership director who should be in place hopefully here in April.
Is that at the James Lee Center?
It is, it's on property that the Housing Authority owns that is adjacent to the James Lee Center, fronting on Annandale Road.
Wow.
So it's small, but it's a great and important opportunity. Chantilly Library in Centerville, we've been working with Supervisor Smith's office on those. And then Agape House is preparing to do a large senior execution. Senior project execution, they're not executing seniors. Out,
They're gonna go in.
out Route 50. Sorry, I want to make sure y'all were awake.
That's what agape means.
I see. So anyway, that is, we're excited about that project. They're in the land use process right now.
Is the library, are they gonna build a new library and put housing over it, or is the parking lot, what is the?
So we don't know quite yet exactly how we're going to handle that. We have a very good partnership with the library system, and we want to take a step back and make sure that we do that one the right way.
Because Loudon has it, one where they put offices above it out in the Stone Spring. It's kind of interesting how they do that, but the housing would be really interesting. Might be a new model for a lot of new libraries. It might be something we think about pushing.
Yeah, we are, I would say sort of everything's on the table there, but we're not there yet.
I hear the Reston Library might be part of some redevelopment.
That's the plan.
Tell me, you say planning, is the county planning on taking it through like the SSPA process or the comp plan amendment process and then providing the PPA, or is it gonna be like the majority of the other ones where that would be the development community leading that part of the charge?
We are thinking, and I might turn to Megan here, but I think we're starting to wonder about where we put the replanning part of the process before we solicit. And we're not there yet, but it may be that we take it through a plan amendment process before it's put out.
Does that make the PPA more prescriptive? As in, this is what the building massing needs to look like, this is what the square footage needs to be, this is what yada, yada, yada?
So that's a great question. I think the point of the planning process ahead of the PPA could be that, the bounds are created, but at a very high level, so that there's some more information that can be put into the PPA. So it can, that some of it can be set and established before it's given to a developer, so that there's that part of the responsibility is left within the county's hands, and we can work through the community engagement process ahead of time, right? Because that's part of the challenge is really that we're encountering is making sure that we're bringing kind of the community along in decisions about affordable housing, and we're not handing over a project to an affordable housing provider when the community is not already on board.
You scoped out the efficiency of doing it this new way.
We're still in the process of designing it. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there are, one of the kind of beauties of the competitive process is that it drives people to come up with possibly more creative, more innovative, more partnership-driven solutions, all those sorts of things, and kind of having a really prescriptive, like, we know this is what it's going to look like. Then you're just playing a game where everyone is on an efficiency cost kind of like the concept kind of changes from the PPA perspective. So it's
Yeah.
sure it
thank
will
you
be
for
well
that.
thought out, and I'm sure you guys will do a great job. But just as I'm thinking about, as I think about how think about the PPA process, and if it was like, build us a 300 unit square, okay, like that's fine. But if it's this is the vision, come up with something, we put more in our architects to task on those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger, and you bring up really good points. I think the bigger question that we have is, how do we work with the communities that surround and engage the communities that surround the developments that we're working on, and when does that happen?
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think that's sort of the main driver. And what you're raising is a great issue about how much detail goes into the comprehensive plan, and what is the purpose of the comprehensive plan. So I think that's kind of the larger question that we need to balance with, kind of how and when does the community engagement happen?
Sure.
Yeah, the extent to which that approach gets us beyond the premise question.
Tom, so I'm sorry, but the Agape House, I see a little asterisk next there. It's not really there, but just for folks to know that that's on the edge of the Dulles Airport. So it changed an industrial area to allow that housing. And I know the airport has some issues with that because it's so close and housing. Its approach, it's not as noisy, but they take off. They're not going to hear it. They're going to feel it because the whole thing's going to vibrate. I live just further south. So it's decided, it's done. But one of the things that we should be thinking about, what are we willing to do for affordable housing? Where are we willing to put our seniors that could be jeopardy in an industrial area? Now, they made some accommodations, there's plans, but I don't think it'll become an issue for other parts of the housing. They've got 3 north-south runways. They're looking at another runway east-west, so they'll have 5 runways at some point. But as they start to build the housing where it is, where are we willing to do? I think it looks bad when you say you're going to put housing the seniors on the edge of the runway, but we desperately need the housing. So it's a good plus. I think overall it's a win, but we should be aware that wasn't just a plus thumbs up for senior housing. It's a concern of where it's located.
And how do you address transportation access to all the services, right? All of that.
Yeah.
Good. So just on the community engagement, I think we'll get to that in the work plans and the communications. This goes to sort of letting the community know that we're building housing across the county, and these are areas the county has identified, and then there's going to be a process. So you're trying to get out front of some of this to start to socialize the ideas.
Go ahead and carry on then. Just a little bit about our policy work. As you know, we have completed our work on developing a plan amendment for the for sale units in the WDU program. We are in the process of socializing that right now with industry and the Planning Commission, et cetera. We expect to be briefing the board's housing committee in June of 2024 with final recommendations. On the preservation front, we were really excited that we were able to get Coraline Gardens preserved, that it's in the Mason district, very close to Falls Church High School. And this was our first use of our new preservation bench that you've heard us talk about, where we essentially put together an RFQ and created a pool of developers that we can take preservation opportunities to. This one in particular had been committed affordable housing. The owner was selling it because of the financing that the housing authority had. We had a right of first refusal in there. And so that we were able to move that forward, and there are going to be significant renovations there on the property over time, and then eventually there will be a re-syndication of the tax credit program. Go ahead. Just more on preservation, we're, currently, we've put out our request for qualifications for the preservation pool. I think it's actually closed now, and we're evaluating the proposals. We're going to be doing our update to our market affordable survey. We're also going to be working on the manufactured housing comp plan amendment and the manufactured housing pilot grant program. That's for improvements for manufactured housing. And we also have a little bit of other news that I'd just like to ask Megan to speak to as well on the manufactured housing front.
Right, I just also mentioned, I'm sure you all are aware that there was the announcement about the price grants, for targeting manufactured housing, that is offering about, it's up to $225 million in grants for repair, for the residents, for the infrastructure that's surrounding the park, for replacement, for help with redevelopment. So there's a wide range of supports that can be offered, and a really healthy amount of funding that the federal government and HUD is now offering. So they just announced it, I think it was last week. There'll be a series of webinars that they're putting out each week on different topics related to the grant, and the applications are due in June. So we're looking forward to looking at how best that funding could help support the residents in these communities within Fairfax County, and how best we can prepare an application, hopefully, and position ourselves well to be competitive for such a grant.
Was this the item that the regional administrator mentioned?
Yes.
On Wednesday, yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little naive, but is it individual applies? Do we apply as the county? How does?
So individuals are not eligible, from what I understand. And my extent of knowledge is that I've briefly read through it and then attended the first webinar on Wednesday, but individuals are not eligible. The county is eligible. Multiple jurisdictions can combine to apply as well. Regional bodies can combine, like can compete like COG if we were to think about it at a regional level, but not an individual. They're not eligible.
Okay, yeah, because I was just thinking about the manufactured housing from our task force.
Yeah.
You got some that are owned by you, there's some independent with door skins, some it's like what a hodgepodge. How do you figure that out? It's yeah, but it's good news. It's more money.
So from an administrative burden for HCD, I'm presuming this wasn't part of your work plans for the year. What does it mean in terms of your team's responsibilities for now having to contemplate the vagaries and connectivities? And I mean, it could go regional, could be just us, could be partnership with Arlington. I mean, it seems to me there's an enormous potential workload associated with that. And what's our capacity at HCD to meet those kinds of challenges?
Before you answer, Megan, I'll just note that never happens. So we're not sure what to do. Yeah, I mean, to your point, it is, this is something that we have not planned for. And, as you're going to see in the next slide, what Megan and our policy staff is carrying already is, beyond our current capacity. That being said, we are, preparing to hire our new manufactured housing coordinator. We've all got our fingers and toes crossed. That's happening shortly. So there's some more capacity there. But, ultimately, our work on this, should we be successful, is going to have to be administered through our partners.
Oh, I'm just thinking we're about ready to enter into what we hope will be an AHAC presentation to the boards of supervisors in regard to budget formation. Some of us can take off our AHAC hats and walk in a different way. But it really is thinking about this from a systems approach. How do we become kind to ourselves and our staff in being able to, do the best for the county and to communicate that up the food chains, that you can't do this for free.
I do want to note that when we get to budget, I'll speak a little bit to that. But I wanted to just also turn to, Megan to kind of talk really now that we've arrived at this slide about, sort of how we're trying to manage the workload relative to policy, development policy, our development policy work. So you can see we've got multiple efforts that are going on right now that are going to be extraordinarily time consuming, at least for the balance of this calendar year. And that's, if nothing else, this grant gets added. But Megan, did you want to just comment a little bit on this slide?
Other than looking like a deer in headlights, no. It's amazing when it's all written out. No, we're very excited to be making progress in certain areas. We have our workforce housing homeownership program. You all are familiar that there was a task force last year that met and recommendations were put out focusing on policy changes related to lowering the AMI levels that the program served and eliminating an overlap with market conditions. Looking at opportunities for growing family-sized units within the program, and also looking at expanding geographic applicability. And there was also additional recommendations about changes in our pricing schedule to make the pricing schedule more inclusive of or holistic of all of the different homeownership costs, including homeowners insurance and things like that. And also, recognizing that interest rates are going up, they have gone up quite a lot. Tax rates going up, the AMI has gone up. So there are a lot of changes to that program that are under consideration. And the policy changes just went up yesterday for public comment. They're open for about 30 days. And we're welcoming feedback on those policy changes if you have a moment to look through that. The pricing changes, I mentioned this in emails to you all. Those were up, just closed yesterday for public comment. But we're making progress on that. We have a number of different outreach events planned for now that we have the policy changes online, but also we've been just meeting with different stakeholder groups. So that's in an effort to kind of get the information out as soon as we can and leave as much time as possible for public industry review, stakeholder review on that. And then we're looking, Tom mentioned that we're going to the Housing Committee in June, and we'll look for public hearings on those changes hopefully before the August recess, since a lot of those changes needed to be done yesterday. And then we're simultaneously, we've been working on the relocation guidelines and ways to update those in terms of multifamily affordable multifamily affordable apartments, if there are ways that the owners want to, outside of sort of the federal URA and all of that, if they're interested in looking to the county for assistance, for reinvestment or redevelopment, that the tenants are we have an outline for how their assistance can be provided. So those we're looking to get those out for comment soon, and that'll be a longer term public comment period. As Tom mentioned, we're hopeful to get the new person for manufactured housing and on board, and they'll also help to guide this home. And then we have the pilot grant program.
Can I just ask a question on the relocation guidelines? Is that being informed by, and we just toured the new Robinson Square reinvention in one university? There were a number of people who had been residents at Robinson Square. I don't know how many are coming back, but is that a domain that there's more data coming in? What real experience of those who had to be relocated?
I think the short answer is yes. I mean, I think it's very important for us to understand how, what's working and what's not, so that we can make better decisions going forward and more informed decisions.
Well, and there's a different type of community that is rebuilt in those one university, larger structures.
That's right.
And how do we hold the culture of community for people who have been part of a much smaller, more intimate Robinson Square location?
I will just say on that front that the redevelopment of Robinson Square is kind of unique relative to what we would have to do to execute a relocation, in part because everybody there was able to have a voucher for when they relocated, which is not necessarily the case like in a market affordable redevelopment. So we have to follow all of the Federal Uniform Relocation Act requirements for something like one university because it's federally funded. The question was asked about what have we learned so far about the experience of the folks who were relocated. And, I'm speaking from memory and these are preliminary numbers. So I want to, provide that caveat, but as I recall, there were 46 units there, two of which were vacant. And so of the 44 households that were relocated, my understanding is that 4 of them have moved to home ownership through our home ownership programs, and there may be a 5th one. And to our knowledge, roughly 30 of the households have indicated that they want to return to the new buildings. So again, I apologize, I'm working from memory, but that gives you at least a rough idea of what we're seeing.
I'm just thinking outreach, public comment, engagement, those are rich domains.
And just to sum up, we'll begin that, or we'll have those published online shortly. And then the grant program as well, we're sort of baby steps here, but when we do hire the manufactured housing coordinator, they'll be able to begin the outreach in a greater way. So we're looking forward to that. And then simultaneously working on a manufactured housing preservation policy to add to the one that was recently adopted about the apartments. And then also at the same time, look at updating the relocation guidelines to make sure we're including the manufactured housing chapter once the policy is adopted.
I just have, so the advisory council, we're supposed to advise, we don't lobby, advise the board of supervisors. You guys look at always helping us to make informed decisions to advise the board of supervisors. The fact is we can advise you as well. Mm-hmm. And so when you sit here looking at, got this price grant, different options, what do you do? Why not ask us to do a subset of our manufactured housing panel and just get together in a room one time, don't make it a long task force and drawn out. Say, brainstorm, here's what I got a couple different ideas. What do you think? Here's what we're looking at. And I think that feedback might be interesting. You can throw it out, but it might be something that could be helpful based on people who've been thinking, living, working around that issue, because it was over a year and had a lot of good ideas come out of it. And again, it's advisory to help you instead of, just helping us to help the board of supervisors.
Even if we used it as something like a red team for the application. Yeah.
Weird.
Something that.
Phone a friend.
Okay.
And
Well, and I just said to that point, we are publishing and making announcements about these things. And if you all not only want to take a look at them and provide guidance, but also sort of reaching out to your own networks, I think that's kind of, I know we've talked about this, about, sort of low hanging fruit. That'd be great to also have sort of feedback from, and spread the word from your communities as well.
Yes, Ava talked about the social media, right? So put stuff out there to get that extended reach. And
It's your ideas.
Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned this, but we now have a RHA LinkedIn site that we can push information out. So please, if you're part of it, let's, friend that.
Yes, it's
I'll send
both
this
from
link
a,
out to
Yeah.
everybody to follow.
We can get
yeah, both from a policy standpoint and from a talent recruitment standpoint. We really need all the help we can get in terms of pushing out our, the professional opportunities that we have here.
It'd be useful to think about for the full AHAC, how do
Yeah,
we
it's just,
more effectively engage us all in that process?
yeah, I'm thinking that sometimes, Megan, and I think for AHAC, what I heard in many of the conversations, and I think this goes to the point, is that it can feel overwhelming. Preservation guidelines come out, and it's a lot of wonky stuff, and if it's not your business, it feels overwhelming. Whereas if we can boil down the impact of this is to be able to, see the transformation and rehab and manufacturing, and here's how it's gonna happen, get people excited about it, really boiling it down. And I think that's what you and Ava and Carrie, that's important. It is a lot, and I know half the people have told me they'd love to go speak, but they don't feel like they have a grasp of the issues. So how we tackle that with you all, I think it's gonna be hard. So, sorry, and I am watching our time. I think we're gonna go right into, this is really important information, but we will go right into, some of the most urgent, the budget conversations, so no worries.
Thank you all for your
Giving
patience.
you that heads up. Yep. There it is. Yeah, that was excellent. Any other questions for Tom? I think there's great data there, and just one of the things, and I'm thinking, David, one of the things that we've talked about, even as the dashboard is updated and what our communications engagement committee has talked about, is understanding as well the in each of the units, we can talk about the three, like Dominic, the three projects in Sully or upcoming projects, but what level of affordability, what level of units, families, singles, just having a little more data, talk points that we know we haven't been able to dig out of your proposals, and not to overwhelm you, but we're here to help. I think do some of that and repackage it so people can talk about the impact of senior housing or who we're housing in these developments.
Any surprises from the Q&A?
Not especially.
Good.
I think, I know we need to move on it, but it just shows you the incredible breadth and depth of work that's being done by the staff, to keep things moving, and maybe speak a little bit more about that when we get to budget.
All right, so I'm gonna skip kind of what we've done here on our work plan, is trying to gather that up now and sort of lay this out the way that Megan has done for the projects that you're looking at against this calendar. And so I am working with folks on that. So I'm gonna skip to this because I think our conversations around the budget legislative will be able to have a brief at our upcoming full AHAC meeting on where we are with the state budget and some of the things that came out of that. Certainly, we'll do some more debrief. And Mary, thank you for sharing the information about the right of first refusal. But we are at budget time. There's been a flurry of information. I did share with everybody, the Human Service Council held a summit a weekend or so ago. We tried to have representation there, but there's some good slides, and they are seeking additional input, which we will provide. And I believe it's Paul, is it Paul that's coordinating Paul Thomas on that council?
For the Human Services Council. Also on that account, Chris Leonard will be coming to the Alliance for Human Services meeting on the 14th, next Tuesday.
March 14th.
Thursday. So, and we'll be presenting the budget, but also doing Q&A. So it's another public opportunity to both listen as well as to seek more. So, it's the budget discussion here today is really important to inform how do we approach that, and also how do some of us approach magisterial district budget meetings to ask appropriate questions and shape public perceptions around the importance.
They were underwhelming last time.
They were.
A bunch of
very
folks went to
underwhelming.
Zoom. They only took 2 questions or kind of planned it. It was like, didn't really help.
It was hard.
Disappointing.
It was very,
Yeah.
it was very hard, and we've talked about perhaps, the now engaging with people directly in some meetings. So I'm gonna, Jerry, leave it to you. Joe Mandara, as y'all know, is our budget chair, is working on the talking points. I think
Okay.
we've all seen the budget. In essence, on the big picture, the tax rate is driving a lot of the priorities and what's gonna happen, and so that's an issue for us. But then the housing, it sustains where we are, and I think continuing to build, but that were some of the quick takeaways. What else there's some good news in there.
Yeah, a couple things I'll say is that HCD is getting 5 additional positions, which could not come. I mean, it's very timely, and that points up the importance of the budget guidance.
Yes.
And
Last year's.
right, I think it's very important to make sure that in addition to advocating, for where we are relative to budget, that the advocacy also continues to ensure that there's a voice in budget guidance about the goal of getting to a higher baseline and the need to continue to invest in this agency.
Great. I think we've been pretty consistent, so you'll see some of that in the slides. Jerry, do you want to talk a little bit about strategy, how we've done this in the past, and what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are so many different elements to public advocacy because so many of us on AHAC actually have that large responsibility within our own organizations and to others. So the question is, how do we get to pull everybody together to this very vision, which is what was guidance a year ago? How are we meeting that guidance challenge? And then how do we frame it for the coming year? I mean, I've been, as you know, when we did our December brainstorming about our work plan, Joe and I were partnered together because I'm not convinced it makes sense unless to have separate legislative and budget. They're kind of all interrelated. And what the state Commonwealth budget means in terms of what we can get done is as important as what we do locally. But as we saw this week, passing a HUD funding bill also is so relevant to our collective thinking about needs. And some
The
of
problem
us,
is last year's bill should have been passed last year.
Yeah.
Right, so now you need to start working on
I know,
next year. It's already, too late. You gotta get going on it.
I mean, I used to work in the federal government where I had to defend the budget for my agency in front of informed Congress people and their staff, but that's like a distant time of accountability. And continuing resolutions seem to have been they're even doubtful. So I don't have any specific wisdom to lend about the legislative package this year. We could listen to the county staff describing the bills that have passed. I don't know whether your staff have felt the heft of responsibility for particular bills that would impact us, but.
I think it's part of the outreach and something that we should look at. I mean, even just look in the BACs, we've got reps on this group. That should be a subset of an email that goes out and said, hey, here's the message to go back to your board and commission.
Definitely.
And here's the expectation for you as a rep on AHAC to go back, right? So that's almost easy one. And then for the others to kind of make that list, where can we go divide and conquer to the different magisterial districts, et cetera, about what that story is.
And there's a little bit of an appendix to the advocacy that affects how the boards, authorities, and commissions address the boards of supervisors. The Human Services Council is the only one that gets to do a formal presentation to the board. And we have to make sure that our housing recommendations are embedded there. It's, it's only going to be a paragraph, really.
And I think, so we can easily package that, send it out to our reps. We certainly had talked about our supervisors. We've got a couple of new supervisors who are very excited jumping in, and laying down their mark on housing. So I would look to the Drainsville district folks there. Dominic, you and John clearly lives in the Sully area. So meeting with Supervisor Smith, divvying that up, but we want to have a consistent message and framework and make sure that we're all going in terms of the AHAC message for what we can share and just see what's happening. So that we can organize. The budget hearings are coming up, and that's always it's a bit of it is what it is, but there will be certainly housing groups. I'm sure we're organizing. AHAC can have a representative. We have a slot already, ready to go to take the message. But I think it's the work behind the scenes, and then it's communications work. So the ideas that you guys had and the article that you did, Carrie, and then picking that up now would be a great time to kind of wrap what happened at the federal level, the state level. I think the impact of our county, the move to we're a high performing agency, the numbers we just saw of where we are moving in terms of built, under construction, in development, and future plans, that's pretty exciting. Near 4,000, am I trying to do the math? And if we can package some of that to get out to our folks pretty quickly, those can be the top points. And
there are different levels of advocacy, right? So within the budget presentation by the county executive, you can see 5 positions, a little bit more dollars. I wish I knew what was originally proposed internally for raising that many more positions, but this is where the AHAC advocacy is tightly framed to a deeper connection through the structure of HCD. I think we also want to be aware of how there could be other influential groups who could move beyond that in a more public, aggressive way that, help shape the envelope within which we get things done. We have to be collectively wise about how do we make that happen. Cornerstones has their own advocacy group. Amanda was at the meeting on Wednesday. And if we're not thinking about how do we nurture them to at least be centrally focused on the AHAC positioning, I think we are not as effective as we could and should be.
I call out that Jill Norcross has done a tremendous job with the Baja and their local budget advocacy. And again, it's building that energy across our region so that we're all talking about it. But Jill, I think that's been really helpful to have. And I know it has engaged some new folks who have been participating to learn what they can do.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree. I think we do need different voices, new voices, more voices, all of it. But I do appreciate the great work of this committee to kind of help our talking points. Again, I think, just keeping it high level where people kind of feel comfortable expressing their own stories and challenges, I think can be really effective to supervisors and new supervisors who are sitting for the first time hearing that. So we'll continue to kind of work that end as well. So thank you.
I thought the symposium presence of Heather Thomas that you lifted up at the end is a really important one about how do you marry policy wonks with lived experience and have a respect for people with lived experience to become part of policy formation. I think those are the long-term sustainability quotients for effective advocacy. I think I've done more this year in trying to recruit people with lived experience than I've ever done before. Because guess what? I'm old, gray, and should be mentoring as opposed to doing.
Has there been a specific pushback from, I mean, the county board, at least is,
Yes.
it kind of looks composed as largely pro-affordable housing. Right? I mean, they're as progressive of boards we probably had in a long time. And, we keep, obviously, there's like this dance of we put it out there, it goes back, we go forward. But is there something that we could show, like, do you need 25 more deals in the pipeline to justify the, do we need to talk more about the economic impact? When we go to them and say, we need the penny restored, or we need a penny and a half, obviously there's, in a county like Fairfax, lots of need and lots of, schools and other programs and all that sort of stuff. And is it just a matter of there isn't enough money, or we need to make our money a higher priority, or our funding a higher priority? Which is I'm kind of thinking about ways to kind of position the argument. I'm trying to understand what folks on the other side of the table are saying, yeah, we can go here, but we can't go here. And, I just was wondering if anybody had any kind of wisdom
Tom
on
and
that.
then Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, a few things on that. One is, I think, in everybody's advocacy, that the board needs to hear thank you
Yeah.
for the investments that they've been making. I think that it is, it's important to, remind the board as well that when they put resources in, those resources are not sitting still, that they're getting used, and that we have a huge pipeline and it's growing, and that's, going to require continued, sustained investment. I think, sort of taking a step back from the historical perspective, when we had kind of the financial crisis in 2007, 2008, and the original penny fund was cut in half, that the sort of cumulative effect of that put us even further behind, and that it's important to sort of provide that historical context as well. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for sustaining us, because if we step back, we fall further behind. And then, look at the success your investments have brought. Look at the pipeline. We need to continue and to grow to get to that new baseline.
And I do remember, I'll go to you, Jerry, and I don't remember, it was 22, what year we were doing where we were out of money. We had so much interest and just going, and we're out. So this is where we're going to get stuck again if we don't do that. That resonated. Jerry's.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we've seen enormous advantages to partnerships that operate outside of strictly the budget formation for the county. The exchange at Spring Hill Station, clearly with half of the numbers of units coming from an Amazon Foundation partnership is terrific. I think of it in terms of work still in progress, though, even within the county government. If I thought about a 52% transfer of revenues into FCPS, I haven't really been able to strike gold in FCPS with when are we going to become partners in envisioning, a capital improvement program for schools that will actually do the kind of housing construction that could advantage all the staffing positions within the schools, or at least within the local government. And we've seen repurposed elementary schools. Go to Gallows Road and you can see the administrative building used to be a primary school that now does all the intake for families who don't have English as a primary language. Really special treatment needed. There must be turnovers of buildings that could operate in a similar fashion. It's difficult to do rebuilding of schools and make the purpose, but it took 2 friggin' years pounding on Jeff McKay and other members of the board saying, why don't we have a rep from the school boards on AHAC? And then once we got somebody on AHAC, I realized that it's really hard to get those elected officials to feel the heft of what we see as our larger mission here and to embrace it. And, you know, I've been pounding on the new chair of the school board, you know, we need to have somebody who's going to rejoin because Abra is no longer here.
We do, actually.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's the new person?
Announcing it.
It's the school board representative from Mount Vernon
Vernon.
district.
Oh,
whose name
okay, which is
escapes-
brand new person,
Whose
right?
name escapes me at the moment.
Mateo Dunn.
Yeah, Mateo, yeah. So, you know, that's now a new person, but a web of relationships that need to be constructed around making that effective. You know that district better than most of us here. Mary Payton can help with that too. The other domain, though, is the Park Authority. How much land in the county is owned and operated through the Park Authority? And when they are now developing their One Fairfax policy to atone for development of park lands, asking people to pay who can't receive the benefits, there's an opportunity there if we had some vision growing amongst the leadership in the Park Authority that there's potential new partnerships to be evolved in this that I think would cement far better the fact that the work that we see before us is really owned by the whole of the county and ain't siloed in Tom's domain. And how do we grow that visionary pursuit, I think is, part of our collective challenge on AHAC. It's worthy of us to think, how do we make incremental progress in those directions?
Tom, if you could do number 3 on your talking points after thank you, is remember you were the job creator. I'm working on some talking points and trying to find some research. I found some out of the UK.
That's your application due next Thursday, and then I'll get back to you, I promise.
Okay. Because it's a great story. When you do the bonds where you're at, and then the fact is everybody's buying supplies, they're eating sandwiches locally. When you make that investment back to your group and how that comes back, that's a great story. If I'm a board of supervisor to say, I gave that money, but it's invested back and it's creating all these jobs. And I just think that's got to be one of the leading things that they would start bragging about. But we got to make that part of our talking points back into them and say thank you. And even thinking about the entire, support system. Everybody else takes the money and spends it, right? It doesn't. You're the ones out there, job creators. It's a wonderful story.
It's great.
And creating new value too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things we might do rather than just, because I know we could talk about it, it is the challenge. I think the next question was the right one, is sort of where are we at this point and sort of what's new? And so we need to talk about it. We have April 5th is our next full AHAC meeting, and our plan was to present, the final context of messages and strategy and what we're doing. What I'd love to do is, I'm checking with Joe Mandaro, but get because we have to publish it, so I need to publish a calendar notice, get a meeting set up pretty quickly with the heads, anybody here who wants to participate, but the heads of the committees, so we can just come together and sort of strategize on those points, and then what the outreach will be to each of the members, which we can start. I can follow up individually with members in terms of starting to get those meetings set up beyond all of that. But if I can get a meeting set up in the next week or two.
Terry, I thought we were part of some folks didn't attend those, and we're gonna go back and say, one time makeup, if you didn't we're gonna have people explain what the
Yeah.
committees are. But then I would, and maybe just been me, but I expected the full AHAC to say, oh, I volunteer, I want to be part of the budget and legislative, I want to be part of, the communications outreach. And that's the piece that we never got to, that said, sign me up for. Because I feel like I'm sitting here, Karen and I were just talking about, I know Ava, we've had a couple of discussions, we're ready to go, but I need to know how can I, and I don't want to reach out to everyone, I'm happy to do that, but I feel like I'm overextending what you want me to do.
I think that's great. And yes, the time, that was December, and then where it feels like I was just doing budget testimony for FY '24. Like I literally feel like it's just yesterday. We can do that. In the meantime, just where we are in the deadline, I think we need a quick meeting to strategize, and then it's the invitation. Here's how you can help.
Okay.
We need people who are willing to go to these meetings. We need people willing to attend the next BAC meeting, take that, and working towards April. And I own that it's just been, how do we keep people engaged? Everybody's spinning, and there was good information. People are doing their own things. So I am ready to, I think, do that and set a meeting. Ava, please, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna follow up what John said, kind of like what are the next step? Unfortunately, I missed that meeting in December, so I was wondering, was there a checklist who signed up for what yet or not?
People went around, we have the original sort of where people's interest has been, but I think this communications is the new piece, right? So the communications committee is the newer piece, and it's the implementation of the work of the other committees. People have aligned around that other work product. So that's where I think this can start. And frankly, I think my opinion is that's everybody's job is communications piece, but there's a few that can help drive it and help us reach out. So that's what we'll follow up on now and begin to build that longer term. Short term, it's just about the budget and making sure we're consistent on the message. Long term, it's about everything we've heard today. Big things in June, July, August.
Okay, thank you.
So I can, and again, love to have everybody here involved, but I think we just need a small group to help me reassess and then help me do some of the follow-up work. I need more staff too.
So
I need any staff. My development director left this week, so.
Deep cleansing breaths.
What else? I don't want to keep everybody here. Mary, since you were on the phone, I do want to take advantage. I just want to mention one of the things that had come out of our work and some real energy was around the fair housing work that Mary led. And the county has really, they're doing a bunch of meetings right now, sort of to keep that issue front and center. And I didn't know, Mary, if you wanted to say anything about that.
Yeah, there's going to be a fair housing symposium at the county building on Thursday, April 14th in the morning. I'll get you the information. You can send it to everybody. We're going to have a really good speaker and a panel, and we're going to have some food. I'm on the panel for NACP, and we have the Equal Rights Committee represented and a couple other groups. I'll send you all the information, but if anyone can come, it would be really good. We're also continuing to work with the county on developing more specific goals and kind of folding in with the new HUD guidelines, which should be coming out this spring. So there's going to be some ongoing work on that all year. And then one thing I wanted to mention about the manufactured housing, the three things that are going on with that is that we would like to make sure that like Tenants and Workers United folks are included at an early stage. I'll make some contacts for that, but they've really got the 5 mobile home parks on Route 1 very well organized and can really get people out to tell you what their experiences are. And I hope you can take advantage of that through this whole process.
Thanks, Mary. And I think that last point goes earlier to John, to your conversation. If we bring the right people together to brainstorm, we have the county committee that worked on that and all of that work, but maybe getting out the information about the grants and be good.
Getting the input from the people who are most involved is what the point I'm trying to make, is to get the input
owners
from the
and
people who live in the mobile home parks about relocation, about, there's some very serious issues that need to be discussed around there. That nobody's been willing to touch with a 10-foot pole yet, but it's going to come up during this discussion about relocation, because there's no provision anywhere for them to be reimbursed for their property if the trailer can't be moved, and that's going to have to be addressed at this point if the park is sold for development. And there's ways of doing that through proffers, et cetera, but it's really going to have to be discussed and worked on in these guidelines.
and budget, legislative. Go ahead, Mary. Or no. Searching for a problem with the solution. I mean, I think there's a lot to do and a lot coming up that if we can get ahead of in terms of work planning, input, supporting some of this. I'd like to have that ready for the April 5th meeting. That is the week after spring break and religious celebrations. I know we'll be coming back to that. After April 5th, when do we meet again formally? I don't remember for APAC. It's in June. June, well, exactly.
So Carrie, on that pre-planning for the April
Yeah, what is
5th, the leadership group, I think the other thing that we want to think about is orientation, mentoring of new people coming on, and planning for successional leadership change, because that really keeps us vibrant if we're already on top of how do we woo people in and make them feel that their knowledge is really important to the furtherance of AHAC. Traditionally, I've served on boards, authorities, and commissions where they become moribund and just, asked to be bathed with staff input. And it really should be much more than give me a report, put it online and let's look at it. But we really want to use our heads and our hearts in a more effective way.
Dominic, you're new and we haven't had a chance to really, other than just, how we engage folks. And I'm not putting you on the spot, but I think that is, I am sort of putting you on the spot, but I think that is one of our challenges. We jump in, there's always work going on. We have great people that come in with skill sets and interests. We brought back on about 6 new members in just like recent months. And it's trying to get them into the swing of things. What can we do? Orient you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to absorb as much as I possibly can. I'm sweating here, writing notes. And yeah, exactly. So, but it's sink or swim application I'm used to. So really just trying to divulge into, where the holes are, what's needed, and then, trying to figure out what resources I can bring to help. So.
Dominic, what's your background?
So I'm currently one of the directors of D.R. Horton.
Okay,
so
I saw the pen. I wasn't sure if you were.
Yeah.
This weekend or if.
Yeah. No. Yeah, stole it from one of ours. Yeah, so
The pen, I was wondering how many, okay.
Yeah, so I ran the BTR section, so across the entire Mid-Atlantic region, so all over Build-Trend, and then just recently moved into running the Northern Virginia division itself. So I've got,
Understand real estate. Fantastic.
And so from wearing your first meeting hat, I think there are other peers that are in the same situation, and it would be very useful to have, after our first year, what did we learn about how effectively you were received here and how liberated were you to contribute, from the get-go, as opposed to thinking I have to sit here for 2 more years before I can say something. What are we missing at the table? I think that's the other
But
question.
Jerry, it's an onboarding problem that every organization has, right? In the military, it's pretty simple because it's such a constant flow. There's a whole checklist and just making a difference. You go through, run the checklist. You're as good as you're gonna get, start doing your job in literally days and you're done. I just think we can pull anything off the internet or somebody has a good model, say, here's an onboarding, we need to do the same thing, right? And it's not the county's job. They probably have different things for all the BACs. We just need to come up with one here that says, just here's the websites, right? There's tons of information. It's almost too much based on what your experience level is. But I think it's a great model. And especially, I always find the newest people to be the best insight because you're going, why do you do it that way? What does that mean? And it's like, so the new person quickly, though, becomes, part of the process and loses that shiny newness and questioning. But I think there's tremendous value for that new person to help us out and point the way forward.
It's really more the where do I plug in and what action is needed? Because I said, I come and get excited to hearing a presentation and getting, reacquainted with the data, the information, everything that's coming up, and we're all volunteers and we go back. And it's sort of what is that interim? How do we keep people engaged in the what? And helping drive that, which is this committee's, responsibility. I think that's been our challenge. Josh Shoemaker, one of our newer members, he was going to attend the Human Services Council Summit, but had newborn baby issues and couldn't go. So trying to plug people in. So we need to think more about that, but it's just various elements. For me, it's more about what do we do? And what is that instruction? And because we have to notice everything, it just puts a little damper on things, even sending out, we're not supposed to be, emailing the entire membership. We have to be careful about public notice and making sure we're tracking. So that had been the burden on the staff that we're trying to take off, is doing some of that. But now that you guys are here to help, hopefully we can get out in front of some of these meetings we want to schedule and take that burden off of you all.
Can we just talk a little bit about the communications then for now?
Yeah.
So Ava, do you want to jump in and kind of do the overview? Or?
Oh, yeah. Well, I know John and Carrie, you guys been doing a lot, but I think just to add on just a little bit of the orientation part, and I know it took me a long, long time to get oriented and feel like, oh, I can speak up, or what can I bring? And I think what helped me in our committee is that we broke it down to 3 things, and it's so simple, but it helps me stay focused on, okay, where does this fall in? So like in our committee, we're like, okay, we're gonna start doing it with 3 goals: inform, educate, and advocate affordable, attainable housing. So then when, say, Tom did the presentation, I was like, okay, that's what people need to know. That's interesting. So I screenshot it or something like that. But in lobbying the last few weeks at the state level, and then we met with Chairman McKay and the Loudoun County Chairman. I forgot all their names. But anyway, what I kept on hearing is that they need more storytelling, help them understand what is out there, what are the needs. So it goes back to informing and educating. That's how we engage. So I think if we help the new members understand that, but do it in little nuggets, I think keep them focused. That's why if they sign on to a committee, then they're focused, say, on the budget, the numbers. On the lobbying, they can turn off, because if you know everything, you can't digest everything, right? So once you really do sign up on something, that's needs to be your expertise, then you can zoom in. But everything plays a part, but that's your thing, so you pay attention. But that's just like my thing for orientation. But going back to our group, again, we set the goals so that we can focus. And again, John and Carrie can add to it because I kind of fell out when I got sick. But basically, Carrie wrote the article to really put the word out there, and it's from a different sector. I'm supposed to come in from the business side and kind of share my side. So it's kind of keep on throwing nuggets out there to the community. So whoever kind of is in that sector will pick it up and be like, oh, okay. And they'll take action. But we're just enticing the public with affordable housing numbers, data to see what will stick. And if we're consistent with it, then they're going to be more interested and they look forward to it. And is it the Fairfax Connector, Carrie, that your friend
Yeah,
is the owner?
all the connectors, newspapers, we've gotten a commitment that they'll run an article once a month for us if we want to, or an op-ed, really. And so we just need to figure out who's doing what, when, on what particular kind of, on what issue. Let me just say something too about the whole, about bringing people on board. I'm working in, I come from a different background. I've not government, not business, not involved in board meetings where you're doing all the kinds of things that you're doing. And so you guys really amaze me. You're touching on so many different things. And I'm still trying to understand all of the different avenues that you all are touching on. And I'm amazed at how much housing is in the pipeline, how much we're doing now. And we've got to get the word out that this is happening, but also the word that we need so much more. And I think that's what, at least that's what I think I could bring to the communications part of all of this, is working with the public and trying to help the public see we need this affordable housing. And then it was Jerry Conley on at the meeting said, yeah, you want politicians that know the need for affordable housing and are behind it all, but you got to get the public to start pushing all of that too. And so those are, you know, when you all are talking about financing and you're talking about grants and you're talking about process and all of this, you know, it's just over my head. But what we have to do is we've got to get out there and really inform people and let them know we need more affordable housing. And that's the part that, you know, needs to help support the work that this group is doing.
Yeah, Carrie, and that was the great thing about the symposium, but a lot of the people, if 99% of the people kind of knew that or knew portions of it.
Yeah.
It just brought it. It's all the other folks that didn't. That's why I love the plan that we've got. So the three of us as co-chairs, we kind of divided and conquered. We all work together, but Carrie's going to lead the effort to do the op-ed pieces. So we've got, actually, I've got 4 different people. Carrie and I just talked. There are 4 people that have already volunteered for the 12 of them, right? So, and some of you, I think you don't realize how much you volunteered already because of your positions that you're probably going to write an article as well. But we're going to have that list. Right now, what we like to do is match that list based on
With the
timing.
timing.
So the timing
what's
fits
happening.
because Tom's got a grand, you know, ribbon cutting, so we can talk and brag about that. But that's the piece that we're going to put together. Carrie's going to lead that piece. David's got the piece of talking about social media. She's been talking about social media the whole time. Right now, how do we take and leverage that? And there's folks on staff now that have a messaging component. Let's make that so we're not going to speak for HCD. We're going to try to do it independently and use that network. When you post stuff on LinkedIn or Facebook, it's going to be this great story, or reposting things that you put out. So that's another whole effort. And then I'm going to try to take the piece that looks at getting some of the volunteers to say, look, here's the elevator speech and a data wall, right? So that data piece that David's going to put together, we're going to put that on a sheet. So everybody doesn't have facts based on what their experience is, because then you end up with numbers from 5 years old, not the current stuff. We're going to have a current data sheet that AHAC has that says, here's the talking points, here's the numbers. Don't make up stuff or pull things yourself. here's what you should be talking about. And then it becomes, Carrie, bite-sized pieces. So when you tell that story, there's an expert in grants that they'll talk about grants or the money. Just talk about what you're comfortable with, the data that you know, and then repost and share it. I think we got a good communication story that we can go out and then make that part of the speakers bureau that Jerry's been so great about pushing to line up where we want to go. And I think that's going to grow even more as we start getting this momentum. But part of it is you got to keep it going. Otherwise, it kind of, stalls out. And new people, the full AHAC, they're looking to do stuff. That's why I was excited to be part of the executive committee, because I was waiting on the other group and it just didn't happen often enough. This will allow us to stay engaged.
I think, Carrie, the legacy that you built at Rising Hope, and you say what you weren't involved in, but we all know you were on the front lines building. I mean, think about South County and everything they understand about housing need and homelessness just from your work. And I think like the woman who testified, there were a couple of people from Rising Hope last year, was one of the most compelling. Again, because it's a voice of need that we all know is there. But it goes to, we need that, plus we need the experts to talk about the, economic case. But it's a good strategy. Engage people on April 5th, but I'm going to send out a note so that the committee chairs can join us so we can pull this together. One question I had for Tom and Megan, maybe it's just another data point that I think would be interesting, is the market affordable survey that you're doing. Really interested in how that goes out, how many people respond, but just given what we know about the market right now and how not affordable it is. And when we go back to our dashboard of, I'm just interested does that really give you the data you need? What are we going to see? Do you have any ideas?
We really don't know yet.
Yeah, I'm concerned about, I just think that's another data point of what's happened in terms of from post-COVID, what we're seeing in terms of rent increases and landlords who are no longer, going to provide affordable. So that might be something, that's not until.
So we're hiring a consultant to help us with that. And they'll be collecting data this spring into the summer, so it won't be released until later. But I think what's also very important, and what we found with the survey a couple of years ago, was that it's also tied to changes within the area median income, right? Because when you're talking about market affordable, you really have that threshold that's based on the area median income, and it's compared to sort of what somebody can afford and what the rents are. So, I mean, there's kind of a dynamic there that is really nuanced about what projects are added, what developments are added, what developments and apartments are taken off of it. So, we can talk more closely about what that means. But I think when I saw the market affordable survey and how it's changed over time, that was something that was eye-opening for me, because projects can no longer, they can be added to the market affordable because the AMIs have gone.
Because the AMIs.
So it's really important for us.
But what does it mean in terms of it goes back to, what do we do with that? It's information we need to demonstrate the need at the different levels of affordability.
Because the income increase is not uniform across all income tiers, right? So anyway, it's something for us to talk about.
I just didn't know what I couldn't remember the timing on that. John and Ava and Carrie, thank you. I think that's going to make the difference and give us the legs that we've needed to move some of this stuff forward. So, anything else that we need to cover, Jerry? Sorry.
I just want to kind of toss onto the table that we're also in the business of trying to grow more support. And, we can't go knock doors on 1.2 million people and say, will you support it? We have to think of who are the influences. So, I think of Rising Hope Mission Church. How many Methodist communities feed into support for that? We now have Reverend Wild serving on the Continuum of Care Committee. Question we should be asking ourselves, how many pastors are going to come to the table at local relevant meetings to speak to this issue? We So for Rodney having to confront the Franconia Government Center rebuild and a very strong NIMBYism, NAACP is trying to organize faith communities along Franconia Boulevard to provide the rebuttal from a faith community, religious values. We want to be cognizant that, as Malcolm Gladwell would say within the tipping point, who are the influentials that we really have to have in our mind's eye, that we're going to grow capacity by really seeking out those who can help make it an epidemic of growth into the housing arena, and be using our higher brain functions to say who the top 12 people in the development community who really are influential, who we need to make sure they're part of your communication team. And if you need a narrative person to support you with that, Ava and John and others can help with that. But it's really to say, could we get within these other communities kind of a buzz for what do we tell each other about this?
Let me build on that. The issue with Rodney and the Franconia thing, Ventures in Community is an interfaith group in the Mount Vernon area, and we border on we've got people from the Franconia district too. But when we heard all those NIMBYs came out, we organized within the Ventures in Community group and started reaching out to other folks in Franconia, and held then the next VIC, Ventures in Community meeting at the Franconia Center with Rodney, and drew in some community people to begin to work with Rodney to build some support for this. And it's those kinds of efforts that, if we can get the communication out that these things are happening, people can then begin to get on board and begin to support. And because we've got to build that groundswell from the bottom up for affordable housing.
And one thing in terms of timing and thinking about the op-ed piece, and I look at Tom and just knowing what we're facing, we're going to hear really good news next week when FCRHA approves this huge new resource. Still got to find the housing, and there's having done the lease ups for all the 169 emergency housing vouchers. But here's some really good news. Our resource that's new into Fairfax County, we're ending hypothermia. It's all happening around the same time. What is that story, and what is the message that, how do we build on the great news coming out of the county, but also tie it back to need and the mission of building housing affordability at different levels. I mean, this is obviously meeting a very specific need. So I just, seasonally, what's happening, budget, you kicked us off with the hypothermia story and where the faith community, the business case, when we're thinking about that, just as much as you guys can think through.
Well, and then the model, right? So like Jerry talked about, what are those communities? We did that wonderful groundbreaking in Tyson's. And when I talked to the Amazon and the Bank of America, they said, hey, we got it, but we want this to be a model. And so how do we go get the other 20 bankers in the area? How do we get the other big businesses that are like Amazon and create that pool? And so we take that op-ed that says, oh, here's wonderful news. And then you hand that to them and say, hey, I need Leidos, I need Northrop Grumman, I need General Dynamic to do a similar thing. And how does that happen? I think Tom's got some ideas on how to create that pot of money that allows them to put in and say, okay, we can do that. It's just a matter of people are saying, okay, I'm willing to help. Where do I sign, right? And you always want more commas or zeros on the back of it. But let's start that story. And so, again, the goal, that's what we're saying. We don't want to get out ahead of HCD, but we kind of know where we're going. And that's why I think what Kerry is a nice template, right? That's a timeline that forces us to think strategically and plug those in. And then we can all come behind it, right? Because then it's the social media and the opportunities that Ava's been talking about. And how do we figure out where to go with that? So it complements either right behind it or right in front of it to prepare the ground.
Right, well, I'm gonna see if there's anything else. Got some homework to do. Any other business that we want to bring up? It's new. I'm gonna call your attention on the agenda again. There's always a plethora of meetings.
Megan want to speak.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say for the dates, the next, so we have the April 5th full meeting, but then there's another exec committee on May 17th.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's June 14th.
So that's for this year and then teeing up the balance of this calendar year. And then all the meetings that are happening in the meantime, again, we've been putting those on for people to be able to, log in and watch some of those committee hearings. I don't know how many people got to be at the housing committee and listen to that exchange and conversation. That's really important.
May 17th, anybody know what May 17th is? Soot in the mall. It's the Norwegian Independence Day.
Oh, my
goodness. I'll have to bring some from
That did
Chicago.
not show up on my Outlook calendar.
I was actually thinking they
And when is Lee Erickson's day?
All right. Thank you guys so much for this.
Thank you all very much.
The team, welcome. Dominic, thanks for coming out. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, guys. Bye, Ava.
Take care.
We already lost Mary. Thanks for your work.